5 supposed friends have gone to a very big magazine, a weekly magazine in America, to defend her. It's a strange one because also I have friends in America who don't see what we're seeing. They think she's gone down a storm over here. So it is quite interesting how it's been viewed on both sides of the pond, as it were.
She has gone down a storm, and I think, you know, this is part of the territory. I mean, is there a single royal that we can think of that hasn't had everything raked over? And yeah, it's a very sorry state of affairs. What an awful thing to do, to say that a pregnant woman is touching her bump too much. All these things are horrible. The thing I hate most is the way they constantly trying to set her and Kate up against each other. You know, all women must be in battle with each other. That's set aside, and I can imagine why that's very painful and upsetting. That's set aside. I personally, if this is true, I think this is a mistake to do this, because I think you just have to turn away. If you're in the public eye, things are always going to be written about you. I think you just have to turn away. I think it feels a bit like, I mean, she's come from Hollywood, she's a star out of there. It feels a bit like how you would deal with it if you were a star, like you'd have in Hollywood, you'd have a publicist may put out, you know, counter stories to try and redress the balance. But I feel that could possibly stoke the fire and set up more attention and more articles.
Where does it end? Because we say, oh, you know, that's just the life you chose and you've got to deal with it. But do you have to deal with it? And why shouldn't her friends be able to go, hold on a second, this is somebody we love and care about and is being dragged through the media in such an unkind and hurtful way, we've got something to say.
I think that they can, and I think that, and I'm sure it's all done with the best intention. What I'm questioning is whether it will actually do any good.
She has the
That's the thing, I don't know if it will.
To quite possibly change the way our media treats people and quite possibly make people conscious of the fact that actually this kind of language, the way we do pit women against each other, moaning about a woman for enjoying being pregnant isn't OK.
But then, yeah, but on the other hand, you have to preface it all by saying how much of it is true. The so-called friends, and 5 of them allegedly speaking out and telling the truth, I think that is a slippery slope. You only have to go back to Charles and Diana. Do you remember that time, slagging match, you know, between the separate interviews here and separate interviews here, documentary here, documentary there? It was awful. And I think that, I mean, would you ever hear the Queen, for example, justifying something that's in the press? I think that if you are a member of the royal family, you have to take that as part of the job. And I think you have to have a lot of dignity with it. And you have to understand the public's intelligence, that they're not going to believe everything that the press or people talk about. So I'm not sure whether, like you, I'm not sure whether this so-called truth about Meghan through 5 anonymous friends is going to do any good whatsoever. I like Meghan, I have to admit. And I think she's a beautiful girl, and I know that she's had the whole Hollywood scene, but I think she's handled everything very well.
I mean, there were whispers as well today that, you know, these 5 anonymous friends actually was it friends at all? Is it just Meghan and her people trying to put something positive out there? Because it must be frustrating. I mean, there's been a lot in the press, as we know, from her family, and it must be frustrating to not be able to have the right to reply. But as you
see,
say,
that in itself, you see, already, so more whispers. So
yes,
is it her friends?
Absolutely.
Or is it her? And
but
I just think, not that it's right, but it adds fuel to the fire.
Why do we do it? What is this culture about seeing somebody and saying, I am going to pick you apart piece by piece until it ruins your life? Why do we do it? I don't. And there has to be a point.
Well, the bump thing is extraordinary.
Isn't
I mean, I just got butterflies every time I touched my bump because I was just so chuffed it was there. And I mean, to say that, oh, she's touching her bump too much.
But my advice would be, try and change legislation if you can, to make a real difference to the way that, you know, some people can be treated by the press. But aside from that, don't read it. Don't read it, because you're going to go insane. And in fact, it's all died down for Kate now, hasn't it? I mean, they never responded, they never reacted, and it's died and gone away.
That's where the dignity comes in. I think that Kate and William handled it very well, because...
See, I think it's dignified to have to say, I don't like this. I think it's just... we do this thing in Britain where we say, oh, it's much more dignified to be quiet and keep calm and suppress yourself.
But your royal family, I'm not talking about the average person. It is an establishment, it is the royal family. And I think the Queen, actually, has set a really good standard within the family. She's had so many problems over the years, and she's in her 90s, and I think her dignity has been amazing all throughout her reign. I really do.
do think there is dignity in being able to say, this is not acceptable and I won't stand for it, and that is the kind of... I think that there's a whole new wave of royal, and I think that they have to set an example as well for everybody who looks up to them, and I do think that at some point you have to go, I'm not going to cower down and allow this to happen to me.
But that would be great if she said it, but I think if you're getting your friends to do it around the back, I think that then you're just opening yourself up to more criticism.
But this is, again, we're making assumptions and saying she's getting her friends to do it, but we don't know that. Her friends could be sitting there going...
No, we don't
know how much of it's true anyway.
No, absolutely. But there are lines out there from some camp, that's for sure. But, you know, none of us know anything. I'm guessing when she has this little baby as well, I mean, there's a whole other load of headlines coming her way. So, unfortunately, it's the world that you're in.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere either. We'll continue to talk about Meghan, no doubt, for the next while.